And as promised, we got Kess in the building.
Yo, what up? Long time coming.
Kess,
I'm glad to be here.
Welcome to the City Station, my brother.
Oh, man. My pleasure.
Yes.
My pleasure.
All about the grind.
I'm super excited to have you. You know, you are a writer, producer, performer.
Yes.
You have your own music. But, I mean, we cannot deny that you are, like, in the books of, I mean, working with all the biggest names, the greats, Diddy, Chris Brown, you know, Timbaland, just to name a few.
Yeah,
and, you know, the hot artists, new artists coming out right now, like Sweetie, Daniliegh.
Just did a record with Sweetie. Daniliegh kind of actually developed her kind of vocally and wrote the demo that got her signed to Def Jam. So
it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, long time coming.
For Danny, for sure.
Yeah.
And I know you guys had this record, All I Know, which actually made it to the charts as well this year. So that's a big celebration.
It was kind of a launching record. Shout out to like Them Joints and Yanni. They are both producers that kind of like created the record, and Yanni actually helped cultivate her whole direction and everything too. So incredible producer.
Staying in the circle, you know, B.Valentine coming back with a comeback.
Yeah, loving hip hop's B.Valentine.
Yes.
Incredible person. You know what I'm saying? Everybody that work with her, they're good people.
I mean, you know, Brooke, she's always had that name, B.Valentine, you know, from Girl Fight, and then now she's on Love and Hip Hop. So it's exciting to hear her coming with a comeback, you know.
Yeah.
It has been a minute, so it's great to, you know, have you involved in it. And I mean, I do want to start from the beginning, though, you know, from the OC and then going to Compton. I just want to start from the top. Like, when did you start getting into music, and how did this become something that ended up being your life?
Well, the way it started is an interesting story. Basically, music kind of chose me. I kind of sang before I spoke, to be honest with you. My mom would always say I was singing complete songs, but I couldn't even really compose phrases as a baby in the backseat. Funny enough, though, but I ended up going to Target. My mom was a shopaholic growing up my whole life.
Okay.
We were in Target when I was 11, and I made it a habit to occupy my time. And what happened was I would go to the electronics department, and I would sing on the karaoke machine. One fateful day, I went with her, you know what I'm saying, dreaded it, was like, can I sit in the car? She like, nah, boy, you can sing. So I'm like, all right, you know what I'm saying? I went in, and then I just kind of ventured off from her and then went over to the karaoke machine. Okay. But this time, someone pointed me out, and I was never shy about it, so I would collect the crowd around me. But it was this older woman, and she walked over to me. She was like, "Where's your mom?" And I was like, I mean, you know, I thought I was in trouble. So basically, she grabbed my hand, walked me over, and we walked through the whole Target, found my mom, and she said, "Your son's a star. I want to put him in a boy band." So I was in a boy band from about 11, 12, up until about 15.
Oh, wow.
So talk about that experience. You know, there's a lot of artists that come out kind of starting off in groups, and then they kind of venture off and do the solo thing. Some have a lot of success, some don't. Like, how would you say being in a boy band prepared you for the solo life?
You know, it's funny. It actually taught me how to understand industry etiquette. It also taught me discipline, you know what I'm saying? Because we had to dance in formation. It taught me styling, like artist aesthetic. But the downside to it all is that I've always been kind of an eclectic artist. So a cookie cutter format was never my thing, you know? But I've always been kind of an upstanding person to where I cooperated when I needed to. You know what I'm saying? So I stayed in the flow of it all just because I thought it was all that was there. But then I started to live life, and I started to expand as a person. And, you know, just started to, you know, just do different things and get to know other people that I identified with. And then it just kind of showed me, like, I'm a poet, and I'm kind of like a weirdo with, like, eclectic details about me. So, you know, that's when I went solo and I left the group.
Well, and it's just a crazy situation. I feel like everyone has their own stories on, you know, certain platforms of where okay, this is finally it. I'm actually getting my foot in the door. I mean, specifically with Rock Nation. Yeah. You know, up until that point, where was your mindset? You know, what routes were you trying to take? What networking abilities, you know, for our listeners here at All About the Grind, what was your mindset to get to that point?
You know what? My mindset before getting to the point of Rock Nation was staying driven, work, and stay focused and busy. Funny enough, though, up until that point, I hadn't necessarily understood the importance of spiritual stability, emotional stability. So I drove myself wild, like staying focused, because I've always been committed to the work, committed to the art. But funny enough, I didn't take care of myself until more recent years. So the grind like ran me crazy, you know what I'm saying? But it locked in and it paid off, you know what I'm saying, eventually.
What was the crazy part about it? Like,
And I want to know what was the payoff.
Yeah.
The crazy part about it is that being born and raised in LA, and then also being from like Compton and dealing with an equation where you're not born with a silver spoon in your mouth, you know what I'm saying? And you have a lot of weight on your shoulders. You know, you have your entire family relying on you, you know what I'm saying, in many degrees. So that part is mentally consuming. And then there's also the element of the competition. I left the group, went solo, and then I ended up encountering other writers and other artists and people that have, motives and stuff like that. It's just a lot of LA's full of, I like to call LA, being a native of LA and someone that's been in the industry my whole life, I feel like LA is a place where the most beautiful and the most talented come to duke it out. It's like the living, breathing reality show, LA.
And
So-
that's kind of a crazy perspective. I don't think I've ever heard it that way.
Yeah.
I think, you hit it right on the head,
Yeah.
honestly. Like, I have a similar experience in terms of being from LA, and maybe I haven't been in the industry my whole life, but similar experience in terms of, you kind of get trapped into a different reality than what the real world and real people actually act. You know what I'm saying? So I could relate.
Yeah, I mean, the city kind of praises, and not to bash it, because I love my city, I love where I'm from. And funny enough, it's usually not the natives. A lot of times it's the people.
Yeah,
it's the,
exactly.
it's the people.
Yeah.
And no knock at anybody that comes here, but people have a preconceived notion about what they think the attitude is to exist.
So
in the
it's
city.
like, and exactly, it's
Yeah.
kind of like a vicious cycle
mean-
when you put it that way, because what happens is like there's people who are not from here who represent the culture here, so to speak, right?
Right.
And then what happens is those people are just people who are from somewhere else who had an idea of what you're supposed to be and act like in LA, but in reality, the people, like you said, who are from here ain't even.
But I'm gonna be
saying?
devil's
Like,
advocate a little bit, because
yeah.
I'm
You
not
should,
from
'cause you're
here.
not, yeah.
I'm not from here. But at the end of the day, I had a mindset. The people who usually come out here, it is for the industry, so it is a reality show. So we do interfere with fake people all the time, or people who are going to give you promises. So we tend to have a bigger wall than a lot of other people, and that's why I embrace certain people that are from here, because they're like, hey.
Yeah.
It's okay,
Yeah.
it's just LA, it's Hollywood, it's all good, and when you embrace that energy, it kind of takes you out of the mindset you kind of have to be in. Like, you kind of have to second judge people all the time. You kind of have to have an attitude sometimes. Like, it's certain aspects I feel like that, has gotten to me where I've gotten, but I feel like that's why a lot of people that come to LA are a little bit more standoffish than the people that are from LA.
Yeah, and in defense,
sense.
and I'll
Okay.
second your perspective on it. I'm sure it's a little daunting to not have your family with you too. I feel like a
Right.
lot of those people that come here, they don't have a family dynamic and they don't have a support system. So it's a little scary. And a lot of people are young and they come here, like
And they-
19, 20.
I was 18.
See?
I was
And
18.
And some people come here running from other things.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's just
So,
this is the perfect opportunity to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
True, and
You come
to an
a
extreme,
place-
because they praise out here. We praise narcissism. We praise a look, because your look can turn you into a mogul.
It's true.
So we praise the things that
true.
are like that in any other places. Like, the thing is, you go to New York and you see New York. In New York, the dynamic is like business first. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
what the money talking about.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's too cold to have an attitude problem. You know what I'm saying? Well, the kind of attitude that comes here, they'll be straightforward. Like, I'm getting to the point. Here, you got this passive aggressive kind of like
It is.
fake,
That
like,
shit
whatever.
gets so annoying,
Yeah.
bro. I mean, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's kind of like the story we've all kind of just experienced.
I mean, well,
right?
that being
like, there's
said,
always one person.
I mean, I'm sure that's happened within your story, you know, when certain people, I mean, and I could be wrong, maybe you had a better way of seeing things because you are from here, you kind of were around it at a young age, and I'm sure at that time, that's when a lot of the bullshitters were bullshitters, and then you kind of seen it probably at a certain age where you're like, okay, I think I know this is the route I need to take to my goal. And was it really just becoming like yourself and knowing who you are? And was it making you more confident in your decision making?
That got me through the whole lifestyle of LA.
Yes.
To be honest, I just always kept my head down and kept pushing through. And I've always been a super optimistic person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm nobody to fuck with, but I never really had to use that side of me in many situations because I've always been talented and I've always stayed out of trouble. When it came to coming to Hollywood. Now in the hood, of course, you got to protect yourself, and I ran into a lot of nonsense and had to learn how to fight, had to learn how to like hold my own. But like, as far as when it came here, it was like a cakewalk, low key. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I didn't really display aggression because it's kind of like, all right.
It's a different environment that you're dealing with. You're not dealing with certain people who's willing to go to that level that you're willing to go.
Right.
And most of the time, people ain't even thinking that it can go there.
Yeah.
They just kind of, you know, like you said, passive aggressively doing their thing and shitting where they can. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it also, when you grow up, and you start to learn, like I said, industry etiquette, and you adapt, it starts to get to you, because then you realize like that lower vibration of fighting when you're angry, that goes away. And then eventually I started to be like, I really let this motherfucker talk to me crazy. And if it would have been about 5 years ago.
Yeah. So in terms of just like the landscape of the industry now, like what would you say, you know, it takes to make a hit record today? Like, what does it take?
Instincts. To make a hit record today, it takes instincts and a repertoire of melodies. Because a lot of times these songs, they use kind of the same melody play, triplets and stuff like that. And if you're speaking in terms of a catchy record that's trendy, I think it's probably built on a repertoire of melodies or melody schemes that kind of entertain a zone or a lane of a certain type of music. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so you know, I want to ask then, do you feel like that's good or bad for, you know, hip hop? You know, like, because, and the reason why I'm asking this question, right, is because I feel like in a way it does push the culture forward, right? But then in a way it doesn't, because because that blueprint is laid, like how you were just easily able to recognize it. There's other people who are tuned in who are not as musically inclined, right? Pretty much copying and pasting the same recipe, and we get this watered down, you know, this is what's hot. And, you know, like we always have trends in hip hop, but I want to know, like, do you think that this information, you know, that people are able to just kind of take and reproduce is good?
Well, to be funny, to be honest, the funny part about it is that me as a highly creative, expanded musician, I actually format my perspective as a writer in staying current after those people that don't really know musicianship.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Okay. So I have to, these days, I sneak in musicianship. I sneak in like modulations and transitions, melodic transitions and stuff, just to make sure I have some integral part about it. You know what I'm saying? Like if I know I'm writing for somebody and they got to be on some radio shit, I'd be like, okay, let me go to the shit that's like, you know, trendy, but let me sneak in what I know I can do.
It's basically understanding the trends and where to fit them in.
Yeah. Yeah, because and in that perspective, there's no ego. You know what I'm saying? For me, in being creative, I realized, and one thing that I learned, because funny enough, I don't think I was L.A. Reid signed me at Epic a few years ago too. So before the Rock Nation stuff picked up, I was at Epic as an artist, and I put together a highly creative body of work, and then it was in the climate of trap music and the DJ stuff. You know what I'm saying? When that EDM stuff was happening in the trap. So there was no place for like vocal driven, really creative stuff. So I mean, and that made me kind of repel, and that made me kind of try to study things that were current. and then, you know, merge it together. And that influenced my writing.
So how did you get into rock? How did you get into Epic? What was the main thing that stood out to these labels to sign you? What were those moments?
To be honest, in every equation, well, for the Epic situation, funny enough, this dude named JQ from The Clutch, was an incredible writer. He wrote a bunch of stuff for Britney Spears and Beyonce, Best Thing I Ever Had, and all this stuff. So I was working with Babyface, and he had suggested that they look at me as an artist and not just a writer. So then Babyface, you know, had listened to him, and then he kind of took me over to L.A. Reid.
Wait, so how did you even link up with Babyface? Like, where did this all start? Was
Writing.
it just through word of mouth?
Writing.
And
Writing. I was writing at his studio and working with this amazing producer named Chris and Leon Thomas. As actually an artist and writer. Dope. Yeah, they both produced a few songs on my EP that went to Epic. And that's
so what advice can you give certain people who want to make it in the industry as a writer, as an artist, or just trying to get their foot in the door? Is it consistency? What's the key to, you know, you got in the sessions with Chris Brown, you got in these sessions with Babyface, you know, all the times before that. What's some advice you could give them? These
days, that's a loaded question. Because by accident I was doing things that I've learned now, and I've honed in. I didn't really know about spirituality. I didn't really know about like the law of attraction. I didn't really know about like monitoring your internal dialogue and like really deliberately thinking positively. You know what I'm saying? I'm in this space now to where, you know, I study a lot of philosophy and stuff like that, just because I got pushed to a place to where I wanted to find another way besides just kind of flowing by the seat of my pants or just falling into situations, you know? And I realized when I think back, I was actually doing some of the things that there are studies for. There are like self-help books and, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. So
just like consciousness, right? Being closer to consciousness and being actively aware of how you control your thoughts. That's basically what you're talking about.
I love that, though.
Yeah, it's a real skill, and I think it's a practice. It's something that literally every day is, you know.
Yeah.
And I can I'm taking that in because when I'm thinking positive, when I'm like, okay, yes, this week's about to be all about the grind. We got all these things going up, and like, you know, I'm staying positive. I'm staying and then sometimes you want to defeat yourself with just like negative energy or something like that, and it can really take you off that path.
Yeah,
I mean, you're just saying to kind of keep it grounded and
and keep it grounded. Basically, set a standard, right? Be as explicit about the details of what you see yourself as. And in one moment, create that dynamic and all of that, and understand what you want to be and what you want ahead of you. And then your job from there is to give it to the universe.
I love that.
Give it to God, and then keep your thoughts in a high vibration, because I really believe that you manifest the things that you vibrate alongside side of, and it's science. You know what I'm saying? It's something called quantum physics. Like you vibrate to a level. I didn't mean to get this deep.
It's all good. But sometimes we need to hear it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Some people need
I think
to
you've
hear
touched
that.
on a lot of key things for sure. It's not just jibber jabber. You know what I'm saying? But I do want to get back kind of into the music.
Let's
you
get
know
into
what
the
I'm saying?
music.
But that's what I'm saying. I think that is applicable to artists.
Yes.
Because if you want a trajectory in your career, you got to know how to monitor your vibration, and that's going to get you to the blessings that you want or the things that you want.
And you know I think what you're speaking to is like literally a deeper level, probably like more than people would even. Not everyone is going to catch that. They're going to have to watch it a couple times to really understand, you know, what you're asking them to do in order to kind of find that centeredness within yourself to accomplish the things that you got to accomplish. Because in LA, it's very tough. We don't even realize the mental battle that we all go through kind of daily just because of the environment that this is. You know what I'm saying? So I think what you said was very important.